I do love traveling. I haven't made it outside of the States yet, but I will. Like, I'm trying to go to India, Rome eventually this year, but...
Wait. India and Rome?
Yeah, I would love to. Okay.
They're so different. Tell me why.
I know. Okay. India is gorgeous. Like, it's just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place. And then, like, there are also a lot of nonprofits out there. One of them that I'm working with that has a base in India, and their whole mission is to, like, stop human sex trafficking. Okay, so I am a slight conspiracy theorist.
How did I know this was like actually coming? Like, I don't know why. I had this like split second, she's gonna go there. Oh, she went there.
I was like conspiracy theorist ever since I remember there's like this huge craze over the book The Da Vinci Code. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Oh my gosh. And then like ever since then I was just like, they have all the secrets. I'm gonna go and be like Tomb Raider or something like that, and like, yeah, so I have a bunch of motives for Rome. And then eventually it's like, maybe I can go there to like perform and do poetry and have a show, because they love poetry out there. Like, really? Yes, in like a different way than in America.
Do you think it's just more mainstream over there?
I think so. So like, with Black Girl Cinema, oh God, did I tell you this story?
No, I didn't. I know.
I wrote Black Girl Cinema because I was auditioning to be a part of a really large spoken word showcase in America. It's like the largest spoken word thing in America.
Yeah.
It's Christian, and like I knew I didn't want to say anything. I knew what I was coming to do. I will say that. I knew what I was coming to do.
What?
And so like I was like, I'm gonna write something like Nina Simone. Nina Simone is one of my biggest inspirations, and she says like, what I want to do when I come to a nightclub, I want to shake people up so badly that they don't even know what's happening. And when I was writing this piece, I knew I wanted to write about the oppression of African Americans, because at that time it was a huge I mean, there still is, but at that time, like the Mike Brown situation was still going on, Trayvon Martin, all the things about that were still happening, and then like the Bill Cosby allegations were coming out, and so it's like there was like this cognitive dissonance that happens in the African American community, where it's like, okay, we are being oppressed by an external source, but also by an internal source, to where we Black women can't come out and say they're being abused by a Black man in public for fear of the public only further oppressing us and saying, see, this is why we can't trust you. And so
that was about 3 years ago.
That was about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So many women were coming out. At that time, Bill Cosby, you know, he's an old man. He's in his 70s. He has this huge legacy of the Cosby Show, and he's built this African-American established father figure, of Cliff Huxtable, who's a doctor. He's married an amazing wife, Claire Huxtable, and they have amazing children, and they're successful and they're Black, and it was such a huge thing for the African-American community to be able to say, look, we can be fathers and doctors and still be fully Black and fully human and fully woke, and you know. And so when women started to come out and say like, yeah, but he drugged me and raped me, and it was woman after woman after woman after woman after woman, it became a thing of like, you're not going after Bill Cosby, you're going after Cliff Huxtable, so we have to kind of silence you. And when I began to see that infuriated me. And so I was like, I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna say something
at this conference,
at this conference, and at this show, and it's an audience of nearly 3,000, but it's live streamed overseas to Africa, like.
Oh my gosh.
in audience, in attendance, there's 3,000, but they probably get easily over hundreds of thousands of people watching live.
Yeah. So did you send in this poem?
So I wrote the poem 3 days before I had to send it in. I sent it in, and I mean, they approved it. And then I had edits. I had edits.
Oh.
I had edits.
Oh.
And so, like, you know, they hadn't heard the edits.
Right.
This is exclusive,
Wait, I didn't know
exclusive information. I had it memorized, and I got on stage and I performed it.
I remember praying that he would send me a complimentary daddy, just like Cliff Huxtable. But instead, he kept me from Bill Cosby's.
Black Girl Cinema was an affirmation, but also a recognition of the fact that, like, I'm proud of my heritage, but I wasn't always here. It was hard growing up and not understanding, hearing all these voices about who I am and who I'm not, and then, you know, throwing in some things about sterilization that happened in the 60s, I believe, and there were just a lot of things in that poem. But most importantly, like, the fact that when we're being oppressed by one another. It's Bill Cosby. So now when I do that poem, I add R. Kelly to it because, listen, he's a rapist. I'm sorry, it's me. I have to say it. He's a rapist. Okay, so R. Kelly and I add Bill Cosby to it, and then, like, you know, Sandra Bland happened after that poem, so I add things about that in the poem.
Yeah. And
so for me, it's like, it's a huge thing. It's one, being proud of being Black, because Black History Month was like yesterday.
Yeah, I know.
And it was a huge thing, right? Like, Black Panther came out.
I know. I feel like this year was, first off, it was, I mean, it's important every year, but I feel like this year really just took shape. I don't know. It might have been because of Black Panther, and I loved that movie.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
And it was brewing.
Can I ask you, like, what was it that stuck out to you the most when you watched that movie? Because, like, I'm white, so it's gonna hit me differently than you.
Yeah.
So
I think, okay, so other than my baby daddy, Michael B. Jordan, if you're watching this, I've been waiting.
Oh my gosh.
I think for me what stuck out the most is the tension between Africans and African Americans. And I only learned about that tension through, like, making friends with, you know, people who are African and seeing, like, they have a completely different view of us. A lot of them kind of look down on African Americans. They feel like we're lazy, or they feel like we don't have good work ethic, or that we complain, or that we don't have character and integrity. And then African Americans have their stereotypes about Africans that are not nice. Yeah. And we have different views, and so, like, to see that articulated in the movie with how T'Challa, who was the prince, spoiler alert, T'Challa's father, T'Chaka, how he left his nephew in America without a father, without a mother. That tension, to see that articulated in such a way that was, like, very smooth was important. And to see Killmonger's character kind of embody the maybe bitterness or maybe feelings of, like, abandonment or rejection that African Americans have toward Africa. Because it's like, while we know this is our home, we know this is where our roots are, we are so disconnected. Yeah. And we feel so abandoned.
Do you think too, because you guys, African Americans struggle to have, like, an identity here in America as well? Because you guys have been oppressed for so long.
Yeah, I mean, and then when we do find some sort of identity, it's often stripped from us. You know, like, prime example, Chuck Berry. Like, he's written so many songs and no credit. You know what I mean? Like, he's practically the core of rock and roll. No credit. So like Killmonger, I really appreciated his character in Prince T'Challa, and in the ending of how it's like, okay, T'Challa comes to America and he tries to like bridge that gap. And that's what I want to see happen between us in America, Africa, and African Americans. I want to see us begin to like bridge the gap with one another.
Yeah. Why do you think it's so hard?
I think it's time. There's so much time that has just passed. I think there's pride on both ends, and there's also a sense of like, hey, like, I don't know you, Jack.
Yeah, I know.
You, Jack.
I mean, it's so. I mean, I think sometimes I feel like we're so different.
You're so different.
And you're right about the whole time thing, because it's when you get to know somebody who's totally different. Sometimes I feel like opposite. It takes a lot extra effort and time and energy, I think.
And understanding, and it's like
communicating.
Oh my
gosh.
Communicating, like why do you do that? And you eat what?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of those things that I'm like, my black friends do, that I'm like confused. They're probably more confused by me than anything.
And we're confused by each other.
Yeah.
And so then add someone who shares the same pigment as you. And that's the only thing that we can say, is that we share the same pigment, and somewhere down the line, we were family. But like, in the millennial generation, I mean, like, we're like, we can take you or leave you, for real.
Yeah,
like, we've been doing this fine by ourselves for this long. So like, Black Panther is a pivotal movie, and it was an important movie for us at this time period, with so much that was just like brewing, right? But I don't want to see it end with Black Panther. Like, I want to see African Americans and Africans, I want to see us to begin to like come together and reconcile. Yeah,
I think it's the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully it's just the start of something like that. And I think too, like what we were talking about, just having that conversation, like sitting down and talking about it. And it being out in media now, like we're able to talk about it in movies, you know, and people having the freedom to be able to ask questions, I think too, will bridge the gap. Because sometimes, you know, it's hard to actually have a conversation if you feel like you're not able to ask questions or, you know, have that communication. It's hard.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know. So what's like something that you've done like personally to kind of bridge that gap? Because I know you're all about that.
Goodness. Specifically between African Americans and Africans, or just like
in general, maybe, you know?
I think for me, lately it's been a lot about like relationships. So like, there are people that I connect with that, and I'm a pretty like wild person when I'm on 10. You know, like I'm willing to talk to anyone. And by on 10, I don't mean drunk. Like just, you know.
Yeah, having a good time.
Just having a good time.
On life.
On life. But like, I think being more intentional about the people that I connect with, and being intentional about like learning from people who are older than me.
Ooh, that's good. That's a good one.
And who have a lot to give. For example, I work with a nonprofit outside of Project Beautiful, but a nonprofit called Shining Light.
Yeah.
That goes into prisons, like maximum security prisons, and works with men or women, depending. And we kind of like teach them the arts. We teach them poetry, music, and they create their own pieces and they perform them. We bring in $300,000 worth of equipment.
Wow.
They perform on a stage and they tell their stories. The last time I was doing this was in January.
Yeah.
And the chaplain was from South Africa. And he was a man who walked with Desmond Tutu in Mandela. And so he began to tell me, so he was telling me his stories.
Yeah.
And this is an African man.
Yeah.
A grown man telling me his stories, and just kind of sitting under him and learning from him and gaining understanding and humbling myself. Like, for me, that's how I can bridge the gap, because I'm going to take that and then I'm going to put it in a poem, I'm going to put it in a song, and I'm going to tell people about it. And that's what I can do, you know?
Yeah, that's what you can do with the arts.
Yeah.
You can take it and move people in a way that just words might not do.
Yeah.
I love it. I think that's what you're about. You know, that's why you do what you do.
Yeah.
Is to be able to move people in that direction of like bringing people together, being real. Even when you're on 10. Okay, I think we should wrap this up.
Okay. Because we would talk all day.
I know, we really would. But this is Jamaica West, everyone. Thanks for watching The Full Color Life. Join me next time for a great interview of people who are doing great things in fashion and art.